Okay, good afternoon and a warm welcome to this ICAS webinar. My name is Lindsay Timmins and I have the pleasure of being your webinar host today. Our event this afternoon will last 1 hour, covering information on how you can start a career in accountancy, business or finance straight from school via the Robert Gordon's University Graduate Apprenticeship Scheme, and that's in partnership with ICAS. Before we begin, just a few housekeeping matters to remind you of. You can submit questions at any time throughout the Q&A facility, which can be accessed at the top of your screen. Questions can be submitted anonymously. We will be saving all your questions until the end of the webinar for the live Q&A session. Please also join the conversation today through the chat box, accessed at the top of your screen. This allows you to comment or discuss with fellow attendees on matters covered by this webinar. We are recording this webinar and will make it available for you on demand viewing afterwards in case you want to refer back to it or share it with others. Everyone on the webinar is automatically muted, so there's no need to be concerned about background noise, wherever you are. We look forward to receiving your questions throughout the course of the webinar, and we will try and get to as many as possible. But first of all, I'll just introduce myself. So I'm Lindsay Timmins. I work at ICAS. I'm the Skills Programme Lead, which looks after the middle level of exams within ICAS. So I'm a chartered accountant myself, having gone through the CA programme. I initially started my training at Scotland Creef, which is now ASETS, and I went through my 3 years with the CA programme. I had some time in Australia working in audit before then coming back to Glasgow and moving to PwC for a time in transaction services, and then eventually moving to ICAS, where I've been here for a number of years. So I'd just like to introduce the rest of the panel. So we have Lindsay Stewart from Robert Gordon's University. We have Jamie McCready-McColville from ScotRail. And we also have the pleasure of current students going through the programme at the moment. That is Lisa and Freya. So our panel's waiting in the wings to answer all your questions today, but we'll start off with Lindsay from Robert Gordon's University talking us through, just giving an introduction to the RGU Graduate Apprentice Scheme. Okay, over to you, Lindsay. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. So many Lindsays are here. I have some slides. I think Jamie's going to put them up on screen. My name's Lindsay Stewart. I'm the course leader. I'm also a CA. I trained with KPMG in Edinburgh many, many years ago and moved to Aberdeen over 20 years ago. I'm the developer and course leader for the GA Accounting at RGU. Ultimately, all graduate apprenticeship courses, so if you've found out anything about these courses, you know that all GA courses are about obtaining a degree whilst you are in a work-based learning environment. That's the whole point of the programmes that were initiated by the Scottish Government. A GA in accounting is special though. It has the added attraction of also incorporating a professional accounting qualification with ICAS. The honours degree is awarded by RGU and the professional qualification is awarded by ICAS. So it's a dual award programme. The degree that's awarded from RGU is called GA and BA Hons Accounting, so it is an honours degree. And as such, it will cover all the expected technical aspects of accounting, as well as encouraging students to develop skills in professionalism, decision-making and leadership. The early stages of the course cover the technical content to grant exemptions from the knowledge level of the ICAS exams, and the later stages incorporate the skills and integration levels of the ICAS exam. So the ICAS programme is built into the GA. The essence of a GA, a graduate apprenticeship, is that the course operates with partners and all the partners are working together to enable the student to achieve the best possible outcome from their studies and work experience. So RGU and ICAS are providing the learning support and materials at the different levels that they're operating at. The mentor or the employer provides relevant work experience to develop technical skills and also all the other skills that a student will need. And the student themselves is working hard to ensure that they are meeting the expectations of the course, the academic requirements, and also the expectations of their employer. Now, the last point on the slide that I've put here is that this course is designed with ICAS to provide an alternative pathway to qualification. And hopefully this is, I mean, you've come along to this session, so hopefully this is a pathway that you are interested in. So it's not that the qualification that you have at the end is any different to those going through a traditional route where they do an accounting or a business degree at university and then go to ICAS afterwards. It's just a different pathway. It's just an alternative route where you stay within a relevant employment as soon as you are ready to start studying, so probably as soon as you leave school, and it's taking you through to qualification. We talk within the GA kind of sphere of this work-based learning environment. The degree that you'd be engaging in is called a work-based learning degree. A work-based learning environment is different depending on where you work. It is an environment that's designed by the students and the employers together. And the work-based learning environment for someone that's working in financial services might be different to somebody who's working in the public sector. The key thing is that environment is there to support the student, it's there to help the student be successful, and also to make sure that the employer is getting what they want out of the environment as well. Each organisation should be providing learning space in terms of, yes, obviously a location, and also in the form of protected time. They should also be providing opportunities to meet the learning outcomes for the course. For each module, the module coordinator will be providing a series of activities, around about 4 or 5, and they want those students to perform those activities in the workplace, so within the context of their own employment, and then they report back on what they found. That reporting is often done through online forums, and it will also feed in stage 1 into an e-portfolio, where a portfolio of learning will capture everything that the student has been developing throughout the year. These activities are there to help students develop what's known as meta skills. This used to be called soft skills in the olden days, but this idea of meta skills, these are professional skills that are really essential in the workplace. It will help them develop competencies that are required to complete their qualification. Students complete or capture this learning in what's called a learning plan. That is then submitted at some point through the course to demonstrate that the work-based learning has been done. Students are encouraged to apply any learning that they've done throughout the course and to look for opportunities for development through the course. Now, this work-based learning environment is what makes a GA different to a traditional university course. A traditional university course, you come on campus, you do the classes, you do your assessments, and off you go home. The work-based learning environment is something quite different. Yes, you study academic content, but you are also looking at putting that academic content into a real context. And this work-based learning environment should be tailored to suit what you're learning and what type of employment you are working in. Now, I can't possibly tell you everything about the GA accounting course in 6 minutes. And so this is a little bit of an overview of what you would be studying. So this is stages 1, 2, and 3. You do 120 credits in each stage. That matches up to any university course you might have been looking at. The course has been designed to try and maximise ICAS exemptions and also to meet the requirements of the skills framework that's set out by SDS. In addition, RGU obviously are going to be awarding a degree, and the course structure has to meet the quality standards for an honours degree. The content is taking students from basic accounting, right here in first year, all the way through to ordinary degree level, making sure that there's coverage of all the major areas of accounting, financial accounting, management accounting, tax, audit. In addition, there's also a fair number of management subjects in there, looking at law, business strategy, digital content, for example. And then in stages 4 and 5, we're focusing heavily on completion of your academic requirement for your honours degree. So that would be finished at the end of stage 4. and completion of the professional qualification, which starts in stage 4 and finishes in stage 5. This is the point where RGU is passing you over to Lindsay Timmins at ICAS, and her team will then deal with the students in their skills level exams, which are integrated here into stage 4 and then completed the rest of the skills and then into integration at the end in stage 5. Employers work with ICAS to map what they want the students to do into the ICAS timetable, and they get a lot of guidance from Lindsay and the team at ICAS to make sure that the student is doing the qualification at the speed that's correct for them and doing the right electives that would suit their career pathway. Lindsay, did you want to add something here?
Yes, thanks, Lindsay. Sorry, it's the two Lindsays here. Yeah, just to pick up when you finish your time with RGU, then you do come into the skills level. So we have 6 subjects at the skills level. We tend to pair them in 2s. So you would come to ICAS in term 2 and start with reporting and performance 2 and data risk and technology. So you'd tend to do those as a pairing. You would then come on to your second lot of assessments, and that would be advanced reporting and performance and advanced assurance. And then the third lot of assessments at the skills level is corporate finance and modelling, sorry. And then you have a choice. We've offered up electives now in our new syllabus. So you with your employer get to choose what elective you start studying. So it can either be advanced tax, it could be data analytics and insights, innovation for growth and transformation, or there's a real focus on sustainability elements now. So there's a sustainability for accountants course. So that tends to be a typical pairing with corporate finance and modelling. And then in your final year, you would do the integrated case study and the professional ethics paper as well. Okay, Lindsay, did you want to go back to your slides? Was there anything else from the RGU side?
No, I mean, that's just an overview of the course. And of course, if anybody's still interested, wants to speak to me in more detail about the course, and obviously get in touch, there would be addresses that you will have that you would be given towards the end. I'm assuming there's a lot of addresses that you can get hold of me if you want to speak about this in more detail.
Yes, that's great. Right, thanks, Lindsay. Due to the technical glitch earlier on, I sort of bypassed all the introductions for the panel. So what I'd like to do now is actually properly introduce you to the panel. So we've met Lindsay Stewart from RGU. There's Jamie McGreedy-Colville from ScotRail, and there's and we'll come on to Lisa and Freya, the current students. But Jamie, if you'd just like to introduce yourself and give yourself a bit of background, thanks.
Yes, of course. Hello, everyone. I'm delighted to be here today on behalf of ScotRail and to support this ICAS webinar. As Lindsay said, my name's Jamie McCready-Colville. I'm the financial controller here at ScotRail. So if you can't remember who I work for, I'm sure my background will act as a gentle reminder for you all. Anyone that's interested, I've just learned that it's the Glenfinnan viaduct on our West Highland route. So there's a bit of info for you all. I head up about a team of 8 accountants here at ScotRail, and I'm ultimately responsible for managing our financial accounting team. So that includes things like completing our statutory accounts, our month-end reporting, all analysis that we send out to the business, managing cash flow, preparing our quarterly forecasts and annual budgets. I've worked for ScotRail for almost 4 years now, and prior to working here, I worked for Amazon in finance capacity, and previous to that, I worked for Deloitte as a corporate auditor, and that's where I did my chartership qualification, and I'm equally ICAS qualified, and that was quite a few years ago now, but I know I don't look old enough to say that. I was first introduced to the scheme back in 2022 when myself and the financial controller at ScotRail at the time were exploring how we can bring young people into our finance team as part of our plan to grow young talent and to think about future succession planning in our team and providing opportunities for our team to study and gain the prestigious accountancy qualification through ICAS. So we successfully took on our first apprentice in August 2023. It's been a great success, and we are actually currently recruiting for our second apprentice in our team at the moment. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an overview of me and how I'm involved in the programme.
Okay, thanks, Jamie. Over to Lisa.
Yeah, thanks very much. My name's Lisa Naples and I work for NatWest Group. So you might recognise some of NatWest brands such as the Royal Bank of Scotland and Coutts. And I'm an auditor in the internal audit finance team. And I am in my 4th year of the scheme, where Lindsay was mentioning earlier about that transition between Robert Gordon and ICAS. So that's me.
Thanks, Lisa. And Freya?
I'm Freya Mackay. I left school about a year and a half ago now. I started working at AAB accounting firm in the audit team a couple months after leaving school. I worked for a year getting some experience, and about in February last year, I was offered to take part in the RGU GA course. So me and 3 others from AAB joined the scheme, and I'm in my 3rd module of 1st year. And I'm really enjoying it so far.
That's great, Freya, thank you. So now you've met all the panel. We'd just like to start off by asking various questions to the panel members. So the first question is, what do you feel are the benefits of the scheme? So we'll start with the Freya and Lisa first. We'll go with the students first.
I'll start. I think one of the massive things is definitely being able to be paid whilst you're getting a degree. I think it's a massive thing at the minute that universities, it can be a really expensive option to go down, and sometimes that's not available for everyone. But this is an option where you don't have to have all that money to be able to still get your education. You're still getting the same results at the end of it. And I think being able to work at the same time, I've massively reaped the benefits of seeing what I'm learning be put into practice. And the same as things that I'm learning in work, I'm hearing about in uni and learning the proper definitions and stuff. It's just a really good way of consolidating everything you learn and puts everything together nicely.
Okay, thanks, Freya.
Yeah, I can follow on with that. Definitely think there is a visual impairment, and I'm registered blind, so going to university in the traditional sense for me felt a little bit out of reach and a bit challenging. So the fact that the majority of the course is kind of delivered through that online learning has made it really accessible for me, and that's been a really important factor. As Freya mentioned as well, it's that ability to earn and learn. I joined the scheme at 25, so I've been badged as an older apprentice, so that was a factor for me definitely. In addition to the fact that the traditional route that you would take is obviously the 4 years at university and the 3 years as a grad, and the fact that the course is over 5 years saves me a little bit of time, so I definitely appreciate that as well.
Thanks, Lisa.
Yeah, so from my view as well, Lindsay, I think it's that practical experience piece. So that combination of academic learning at RGU whilst you're gaining the on-the-job experience, ensuring you're applying those practical skills. So this was something that I didn't get whilst I was studying at university. So that really helps solidify the apprentices' learning, and they get that tangible experience of putting the theory that they're learning at university actually into practice. So our current apprentice that we have always notes how advantageous this is and how this really helps clarify their knowledge. So I think that's the first thing for me. The second thing would be working in a real business environment. So our current apprentice is employed in my financial accounting team, gains that hands-on experience day in, day out. So, he's posting journals, preparing balance sheet reconciliations, really gets involved in our daily banking and learning how to manage cash flows. So all of that great experience really helps solidify his business knowledge and everything he's learning at university. And then I suppose exposure to the specific industry that you're working in. So you as an apprentice, you build up your knowledge for if you're working for us in ScotRail, all things ScotRail related, and it really sets you well up for the future in terms of applying for promoted chartered accountancy roles. So that's where that sort of succession planning piece comes in. I think another key benefit of the scheme is fast tracking your chartership qualifications. So I did it the traditional route. I went to university, studied for 4 years, then went out and worked in audit at Deloitte, and then studied another 3 years to gain my ICAS qualifications. So it took sort of 7 or 8 years for me to become fully qualified. Via this route, you're qualified within 5 years, which I think is brilliant. So, on reflection, I would love to have done a scheme like this if it had been something I'd known when I was leaving school. And last but not least is actually the support that the student gets from both the employer and the university and ICAS. So I think we're coming on to talk about that a little bit later, but you get that mentorship in-house as well, and you're working with people that have loads of experience in accounting that can help you if you've got any questions from your uni studies.
That's great, thanks Jamie. And Lindsay, just what do you feel the benefits are of the scheme from an RGU perspective?
I think from our perspective, it's for us, I think it's offering a university course to people that otherwise might not have been able to come to university for various reasons. We've heard about financial reasons, disability reasons. There's other geographical reasons, for example. So we've got students from Shetland, from Orkney, from the Western Isles, who perhaps didn't want to leave home and go to Glasgow or Edinburgh or wherever to study. I think the main part of the course being distance learning, having minimal days on campus or at the ICAS classes, is a huge draw for this type of study, because it means that you can create that work-life balance that hopefully you're trying to establish early on as you leave school, making sure you've got time for everything. It's very hard, and not having to leave home, not having to travel from work there or whatever, does make a big difference. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons, I think, for the GA being successful, is that it's just giving people a different way to study and still get the same result in the end.
That's great, thank you, Lindsay. It's a flexibility that's so good, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Okay, next question then, and this is probably more directed at Jamie and Lisa and Freya. Can you tell us what was in the recruitment process for ScotRail, and then also Anderson Brown, that's AAB, and also NatWest? So we'll start off with Jamie, then maybe go on to Lisa and Freya, just to talk around the recruitment process. What should students when they're coming for their potential jobs?
Yeah, so in terms of the recruitment process here at ScotRail, we ask first of all for an application to be completed. So it's kind of like a personal statement that you would complete if you were applying for university. Ask key questions about why you're applying for this particular role, what interests you about the role in working for our business, so in the rail industry in ScotRail, and any information that you can give that you wish to be considered in your application that you think is relevant to working in a finance team. So that might be a Saturday job or some other extracurricular activities that you've done outside of school that you can display skills and qualities that you can put on the application form. So we ask for that, and then we also obviously ask for your exam results. So we look for candidates to have as a minimum 4 Bs at higher level, and we ask for maths to be one of those hires as well. We then, in terms of the process, we'll collate all applications. We would then sift through those applications and then invite potential candidates for interview. Now, the interview would be a panel of 2, usually someone from HR in our business and someone from the financial accounting team in my team. And that would be a competency-based interview, just trying to assess and understand your skills and your knowledge to date, and your sort of real want for the role, and making sure you understand the scheme and why you're attracted to the scheme via through this particular route. And then we ultimately then offer the candidate the role at the end. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a flavour of our process.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can take over from there. So I applied in 2020, and obviously it went through a similar process what Jamie said about filling out an application form, and then I also had to do a pre-recorded kind of video interview where I filmed myself answering questions, and then the kind of final stage was that interview over Zoom. The interview was based on NatWest's they're called critical people capabilities, and these are skills and behaviours that align with the bank's purpose, their values, and their risk culture. So they're connected, improver, innovator, critical thinker, trusted advisor, and being change ready. And basically they incorporate them into competency-based questions that you can then kind of highlight your experiences using those. So yeah.
Thanks, Lisa. And I suppose that was at peak COVID time, wasn't it? That interview process in 2020. And what about you, Freya?
Mine was really similar process as well. So it started off with the CV and kind of personal statement type thing getting sent in. A/B don't actually have like a set out sort of grades that you need to have, but obviously it's like you kind of know what subjects you're good at and what might align with the job role itself. So it's kind of just based off of more so you as a person. We then had the video as well where we had to answer some questions. Some were audit related, some were more so just like personal skills and such like. And then that final stage was the interview as well, and that was with 2 members of the audit team that were already there. The interview was actually a lot more relaxed than what I went into expecting. I think they kind of just want to get to know you as a person and how you kind of handle yourself and stuff like that. But yeah, that was it for me.
That's great. Thank you, Freya. So the next question we have is probably directed at Jamie from ScotRail. So what attracted ScotRail to the RGU GA scheme, and what's your experience so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think firstly, the ability for us to recruit and develop talent at an early age is something that really attracted us to the scheme, and it allows us to sort of shape our apprentice into a skilled finance professional aligned with our business needs. So that's great. It also provides us access to talent early on. We know ICAS is a prestigious qualification, and this scheme allows us as an employer to have access to that next generation of best talent. Unlike graduate hires that come in with sort of general knowledge, like I did myself when I first moved out into practice after university, it can take time to get up to speed with the business, processes, systems, all that sort of stuff. But via this route, the apprentice is trained in a very structured way and a very company-specific way as well from day one when they join us. So they're extremely knowledgeable about our processes, how the business works, and this works really well, like what I mentioned earlier about succession planning in the future and providing opportunities to continue your career in our business as a qualified accountant. And then I think another thing as a business, it allows for higher retention. So the scheme is I've talked about succession planning, but apprentices are more likely to stay longer term if they've built really strong ties with the team. They really understand the business and they're bought in from the beginning. So our ultimate goal is to be that inclusive employer, be involved in apprenticeship schemes as much as we can be, and being as forward thinking as we can. And that was the real attraction to this scheme for us. And getting that talent in from the very beginning after school.
That's great. Thanks, Jamie. And just to follow up on that, what is it that you're looking for in a candidate?
Yes, I mean, we'd be looking for a mix of sort of technical aptitudes, having the right mindset, soft skills to succeed in both the workplace and through the RGU qualification and ICAS qualification. So maybe taking each one of these in turn, in terms of sort of academic ability, I mentioned earlier, we're obviously looking for the 4 hires at B grades and including maths. In that you work with numbers all the time in finance, so having strong numerical skills is a real benefit. I think willingness to learn, so that's something we always try to get out of candidates in interviews. It's challenging. The apprentice needs to work, and they also equally need to study. So they really must be eager to learn and manage those competing priorities. So examples of that through part-time job or extracurricular activities can be really good in interviews because that can draw in those sort of competing priorities and people already having experienced that through their sort of school career. And then the last thing we look for is really strong communication skills. So clear and professional written and verbal communication skills is something that we're really keen to see. You'll be pulling together once you come into our business as an apprentice, reporting, stakeholder engagement, so business partnering with not just people internally in your finance team, but with the wider business. So communication is really key, and that's one thing we would also be looking for in a successful candidate.
That's great. Thanks, Jamie. That's good to know what you're looking for within your candidates. And I'd just like to open up to all the panel now. So Lindsay, Jamie, Lisa and Freya, this question, what skills do you need for the qualification? So do you have to be good at maths? and what's the expectations of a student. So I'll maybe start with Lindsay then from RGU, and then going to hear Lisa and Freya's perspective from the student side of things.
Do you have to be good at maths? I think you have to be good at arithmetic, and you have to be comfortable with numbers in terms of the course and the academic content. What you'll be doing in the workplace is a whole different story in terms of the type of maths and numerical manipulation you'd have to be doing. It would depend on your job, probably. What I think skills-wise would be helpful from the university's perspective is focus and organisation. I think you have to be exceptionally organised with your time, with your studying. You have to be focused. So when you're at work, you're at work. When you're studying, you're studying. When you're playing or horse riding or doing football or whatever it is that you do, that's what you're doing. That you have to be prepared to segment your life in many ways, and or you'll go mad trying to balance everything together. So yes, I think those are key skills. Just adding on to what Jamie was saying about qualifications, that there may be people here who have other level 6 qualifications, some apprenticeship work that they've done and not the other level 6s that are offered. It's up to the employer what they're looking for in terms of giving you an apprenticeship role. You also have to apply through the university. I will look at other level 6 qualifications as well. And your personal statement would obviously capture actually quite a lot of what Jamie was talking about, of trying to work out what type of person. Have you demonstrated leadership? Have you demonstrated focus? Did you complete the Duke of Edinburgh, for example? Those things will be important, because it's not just a university course. We're trying to make sure that the candidates are developing all the competencies. So there's a double application. The employer is one side and the university is the other. So I will look at those other ones as well.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. And Lisa?
Yep, happy to go next. Yeah, I definitely agree with Lindsay. Like, if I looked back at school, maybe I would say that maths wasn't my strong point. I definitely held the misconception that if I was bad at maths, I couldn't be an accountant. But kind of as others have mentioned, like, maths comes into it and it is important, but it's definitely things about that critical thinking and being analytical is equally as important. And I think, as Lindsay also touched on about that time management or organisation, for me, it's definitely the time management around exam deadlines. You can be juggling a couple of plates, and it's important that you set yourself up, and, like Lindsay said, segment your time to make sure that you are setting yourself up for success. The other kind of skill I'd say as well, which is a bit of a strange one, is resilience. And this isn't something that I necessarily started the course with, but it's something that you do develop over time. There can be a lot going on. You're sitting exams, it's a bit stressful. And of course, not every subject is going to be your strongest. So it's about using the support and the tools available and, like, resetting after each one. So yeah, those I'd definitely say are the kind of most important for me.
Thanks, Lisa.
I would personally say that motivation's a massive one. Obviously, it's different in each workplace, but I went down to working 4 days a week and had my study day. And to begin with, it's easy to think like, oh, you've got a Friday off work, it's all good. But there is a lot of work you need to get covered, and it's not just the studying and the weekly content. You've got your work-based learning as well, and you really need to stay on top of that, because if you don't, it piles up, and it piles up really quickly. But yeah, I think being forward thinking is a massive one as well. And not just about yourself. Working in an audit team, a lot of these work-based learning activities might involve speaking to someone else in your team, or scheduling a call, or doing an interview with someone. You need to be thinking ahead about when are they going to be free, because it can be easy to leave at last minute, and before you know it, the person that you need to speak to has not actually got a chance to speak to you by that deadline. So I think just being able to make a plan and stick to that is really good. Yeah, it's definitely important for that.
That's great. Thanks, Freya. Sounds like there's common themes here about being organised and time management, and just factoring all those things into your skill set. So just when we're looking at the programme, I just want to then ask a question about the support that's offered to students. So students are well supported by Robert Gordon's University, ICAS and their employers. So what sort of, I'll just go around the room. So from an RGU point of view, what sort of support do you offer students on the scheme?
There's support at all different levels. So you start with your module coordinator, who will support you through that particular academic content. You've got me as the course leader, who's overarching and would support you with anything. We've got our GA success coach, Liam, who helps students with study skills and issues they might be having. We've got the inclusion team, who might help anyone who wants to speak about dyslexia or any other kind of neurodiversity that they might have, and seeing if we can accommodate any requirements that they would have. So that team's there supporting as well. The business development team, who join us with employers, for example, they're a support that's available for students as well. And we've also got dedicated GA admin staff who help us basically just manage all the students, manage them to make sure everyone's registered, attached to Moodle, attached to the exam papers, linking them with ICAS, making sure that we are tracking through the students as they go along, and they would supply all the forms and all of the paperwork that's needed at each different stage. So yes, there's a lot of support from the university, and it's the GA is different to the other courses, and so the staff tend to be dedicated to the GA course, and so they're not experts at everything, but they're experts at their part, and can make sure you've always got someone to back you up. So yes, lots of support.
That's lots of support available, Lindsay. Thank you. And then from a sort of employer's point of view, Jamie, you can maybe talk through ScotRail, and then Lisa and Freya from your perspective within your respective employers.
Yeah, absolutely, Lindsay. So, adding to what Lindsay Stewart has just talked about from an RGU support, so I'll not repeat that, but internally in ScotRail, the apprentice would have, first of all, a line manager. So they're there to support the individual on a day-to-day basis, with the management of, the actual planning and allocating of their workload. They'll oversee the individual's performance, and they'll liaise with the student's mentor, workplace mentor, who's actually a separate individual within ScotRail. So it's really nice that you actually have support from two different individuals that are within the wider finance team in ScotRail. So the workplace mentor, their responsibility is making sure that they are mentoring and supporting the development of the student and providing feedback to the university if required. And they're helping ensuring that their roles and activities that are being set by that line manager allows the student to gain the wider experience necessary to support the course and the module learning that's taking place at RGU or at ICAS. So there's a nice balance where you've got that workplace mentor that sits at the side, making sure that the sort of work allocation, etc., hits the competencies that are required and make sure that it's relevant to what the student's studying at university. But then you have your day-to-day line manager that you can go to with anything that you'd like. And then, of course, I champion in our team everyone to be super supportive. And there's the whole finance team that you can go to with any questions that you have, and I'm sure any of them would be willing to support. The other nice third sort of support mechanism that we have in place at ScotRail is the Workforce Development Officer. So this is another individual that sits in the HR function in our business, and they're there and meet with the apprentice every 4 weeks to ensure that the apprentice gets the best support from the business, but equally from the university. And it just gives the apprentice someone externally at the finance team to talk to, and they sort of look at how the exams are going. Could they be supported in a better or different way? So that great support's there from our HR team as well.
That's great. Thanks, Jamie.
Yeah, probably following on from all of that, it does take an army. And as Jamie kind of reiterated as well, but having that mentor, and I'm fortunate as well that my university mentor does not sit within the business function that I work in. So they're entirely separate, which means, they've got access to other people necessarily that I don't have, and that my team don't have. I have my line manager, and I've got my work colleagues, like Jamie had mentioned, if I'm stuck on a question, someone else has gone through the qualification, they can help me with that. But what I would say most importantly is having your apprentice cohort. Luckily there's 5 of it at NatWest who are going through this process together. And being based in Edinburgh, we've had lots of journeys up to Aberdeen together, and a lot of karaoke in the car kind of thing. So and it's a group of friends that you do make for life. I always joke as well, I got married in 2022 and one of my bridesmaids was in my apprentice cohort, and without the course we wouldn't have met that, so it is kind of a vital support system.
Thanks, Lisa.
I definitely agree with everything that everyone said already. I think from my experience, I've really noticed that in each module that I've been in, your tutor who's helping you along really wants you to do well in that module. Email them any time of the week and they'll get back to you as quick as possible, and be really helpful in the way that they do. And definitely the people that you're going to university with as well. That's a massive help. I think working at AAB, my colleagues have been one of the biggest help. Like my mentor, but even outside of that, everyone in my team always asking how I'm going on with it, if I need any help with anything. But yeah, a lot of support from a lot of angles, and it's really, really helpful.
That's great. Thanks, Freya. So it's quite good to hear you get support from the RGU side and then the employer side. And I would just like to say that there's support offered by ICAS as well. So when you come to us for workshops and assessments, a bit like what Lisa was saying, you get that camaraderie. If you come to workshops, you get to know your peers on the course and you do develop relationships and lifelong friendships there when you're going through this programme together. At ICAS, we've got the student wellbeing support as well. So you've got 24/7 access to counselling if you need it, and all other sorts of services there as well. So when you come on board as a student, there's a wealth of like a package of wellbeing support available to you. But out with that, with your peer-to-peers in the classroom, in the workshops, you've also got access to the tutors. They're always really supportive and answer all your questions. Within any course that you're enrolled with in ICAS, you'll have access to a discussion board as well. So that's where you can post questions of like a technical nature if you're struggling with something within a particular module, and the tutors come back to you in a quick turnaround period. So there's always support available within ICAS as well. Okay, so time for one final question, and it's perhaps open to all of you, but well, perhaps more Lisa and then Freya. Just what advice would you give to those considering the graduate apprenticeship RGU route? I'll go Lisa first.
Yep. What I would say is obviously look at all routes available before making any decisions. I always think, it's if I'd known about this a couple of years ago before I'd started, it would have been what I'd gone down, but make sure you're aware of all the options available to you. I'd also say that like the qualifications that you currently have or that you're working towards are important, but think about your life experiences and how these make you a stronger candidate. And advice I always give to people when I speak to them is about make sure you take a note of anything you've done. It can always end up being an excellent interview answer for these kind of competency-based questions.
Thanks, Lisa. Freya?
I definitely agree, yeah, like just making sure that you're kind of taking all the opportunities you can, whether that's in school, like doing the Duke of Edinburgh sort of thing, just kind of building up your own portfolio so you've got things to talk about from yourself, you're building those skills as soon as you can. And then again, just kind of words of advice if you do come on the course, just making sure that you're keeping time for yourself as well. Obviously, we said it's quite a time-consuming thing to do, but it doesn't take over your full life at all. I still have plenty of times to do hobbies, see my friends and stuff. So I just wouldn't be scared off by that, but just keep in mind that it's good to have your own time and have the balance between it.
That's great. Thanks very much, Freya. Thank you very much to the panel for answering all those questions. That's been fabulous. We'd just like to move on to the live Q&A session of this webinar, so please feel free to ask any questions using the Q&A box at the top of the screen, and we will be able to provide you with answers. Okay, so the first question, sorry, I've got a couple of questions. Okay, the first one then from James is, how do you find the workload balancing both work and studying? So that's probably in Lisa and Freya's domain at the moment. So how do you find the workload balance both work and studying?
It's definitely challenging, and around exam times are obviously busier, but I think, as Lindsay and everyone's kind of said, it's being meticulously organised. I'm also really vocal about it with like work, my family and friends. Like, I've got an exam in 2 weeks. Please do not expect too much of me right now outside of what I'm doing. That balance, but I also, as Freya kind of said about hobbies, I love to travel, so I like to try and make sure I've got a holiday booked, and that kind of gets me through that exam period of, you're going to sit this exam, but in a few weeks after that, you're going on holiday. I find that kind of helps keep me motivated.
Lisa?
Yeah, it definitely can be quite a hard thing, as we've said. I think definitely I've noticed from my work is that they're the ones who have chosen to put you in this sort of education and work route, and everyone from my work will put my uni first. There's times where maybe we've been a bit more busy and I've said like, look, do you want me to work on my off day? And they quickly jump to say no, like that's your study time. They make sure I've got the time there, so it's just kind of down to me to use that properly and keep fitting the hobbies in and see my friends and stuff and family.
Thanks, Freya. And this question, probably directed maybe more at Jamie, does a student need to pay for their own travel and accommodation?
I think it'll be down to the employer, but from our perspective in ScotRail, we certainly don't charge the apprentice, and that's covered by ScotRail.
And just from Lisa and Freya's point of view, is that covered by AAB and NatWest?
Yeah, as anytime we have an exam, we travel up, stay in a hotel, and that's all covered by the business, yeah.
It's the exact same at AAB as well, yeah.
That's great, thank you. If you're already in a job, what would be the reasons to choose this option over a straight CA programme? So, Lisa, could, if you had the choice, would either the straight CA or the GA route? What would you give advice on?
It's a difficult one, because obviously there is some routes, but I personally think this one works best because you have that support system. I think can't overstate it enough how much support you have, and also, like, say, you're getting that opportunity to do that work-based learning as well at the same time, and incorporating that. So I think, I'm probably biased doing it myself, but this would be my first choice.
Thanks, Lisa. And Lindsay?
Yeah, I mean, there obviously are lots of different pathways that you can choose. The benefit of the GA is that the government essentially is paying for it. It's funded through the Scottish Funding Council, and so your degree is paid for as it would be if you were a coming on campus type student, but it also covers you right to the end of your CA qualification. So for your employer, there's, we spoke about the cost of travel and accommodation. That's small compared to the cost of doing the ICAS qualification if they were paying for it. And so, ICAS kindly are working in partnership with RGU and Scottish Funding Council to make sure that this course can be covered by that funding that's available. So that's a huge advantage. So the other thing is that it means that you end up with a degree and the CA. And whilst you might only need the CA at the moment, you never know what career opportunities might come to you in the future. And some employers will ask for both. Regardless of the fact that the CA is higher than the degree, they still want the piece of paper. And you might find that your parents and other people who influence your life also would prefer that you have the degree. And so it's a way of meeting both those requirements. So there is advantages, but as Lisa said, there are lots of pathways, and there are obviously direct pathways with ICAS that you would be able to choose as well. And you could speak to Lindsay or someone else in the team about that.
That's great, thank you, Lindsay. Another question, where are these jobs advertised? Is there a certain time of year to look out for them? Okay,
I think for my job personally, something I noticed when I was in high school was that it's kind of all straight ahead focus on uni, and there's not really much chat about what sort of other options are available. But I'd always been quite vocal within class and stuff about how this is something that I'd be interested in. So it was actually on the UCAS website that one of my teachers had found the advertisement. But I think a big thing is definitely LinkedIn. It's not something that I had ever really thought about in high school, nor had any of my peers. But but there's so much on LinkedIn. You can search in any sort of keywords and you'll get flooded with loads of different options. So I think that's definitely a good place to look.
Yeah, that's good advice. And it's worth noting that although it's in partnership with Robert Gordon University, it's not just isolated to Aberdeen. So it's offered in the Central Belt as well. And we certainly have students at ICAS coming to classes in Glasgow and Edinburgh as well as Aberdeen. So it's not just unique to Aberdeen. To find out more, you can go to becomeaca.org.uk, and that will give you a list of the jobs advertised as well. Okay. So I think that's most of the questions answered. Yes, I think that's us. We're almost out of time. What we'll do is I would just like to thank the panel members for their time today. So Lindsay, Jamie, Lisa and Freya. What we'll do, we'll follow up with an email including links to our jobs board and how you can sign up for more regular updates with ICAS as well. But just thank you very much then for joining us today, and I do hope that it has been beneficial to you. So thank you again, and until next time, goodbye.